Hi, it's Corrine, and I am back with another page out of my Smashbook. In this page, I am adding a film strip to the right-hand side of the page. That film strip I cut from the Cameo. And the first thing I'm doing is deciding what page I want to use. I know that I want to use a page on the right-hand side, and I'm just looking for a page that's going to match my photos. Here I'm trying to decide how far I want that film strip to come over on the right hand side, and I end up deciding I'm going to bring it in a 1/2 inch. So I'm just marking where my 1/2 inch is. This here I'm deciding how much of the page that's going to leave me for my photos. So once I was happy with the placement of the 1/2 inch, then I'm going to use my T-square ruler and mark a straight line down the page as a guide for me to follow to cut that side off. Now the film strip is 2 inches wide, so I'm measuring over 2 inches and doing the exact same thing. I'm giving myself a straight line to use as a guide. And now I'll use my cutting mat and my craft knife, and I will just try to follow that line as best I can to keep it straight. And this 1/2 inch that I'm cutting off here, I'm going to set aside and use that. But this next piece, this 2-inch piece, I don't need this, so I'll discard that. So this film strip, I cut out 4 of them. I cut them from a 65-pound cardstock, so it's a pretty thick cardstock, but being that it's holding the side of my page together, I wanted it to be a little bit more durable. So I'm adhering 2 of them together, and then I will adhere 2 off camera together for the opposite side of the page that you'll see later on. I just used my Scotch quick dry to adhere those together. And now I'm using some transparencies that I got from Office Depot a long time ago, and I'm cutting off a piece that is 2 inches wide, which is the same as the film strip, by 10 inches long, which is the height of my page. And since I have my cutter out, I decided to cut the mat for my photos, which is 6.5 by 3.25. I wanted a white border to go around my photos. So I'll just set that aside and do that later. I just wanted to cut that while I had it out. Now to adhere my transparency, I'm using Glossy Accents. It's a very strong adhesive and it dries rather quickly. I'm going to set that aside, and I did place a book on it while it was drying. Now the 2 photos I'm using, I printed out. I printed them at 3 by 3 photos, and they are of a project that I just completed, which is not something I normally scrap. So I thought it was a good idea to include some projects every now and then in my scrapbook or Smashbook. So now I'm ready to adhere my film strip. I'm going to again use my glossy accents and just put it on the very edge of that and match it up with my paper. I pulled out my nonstick mat just in case any glue seeped out, which a little bit did, so I was glad I had that there to use. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm happy with the placement, and then once I am, I really press it down. And now I'm going to adhere my 1/2 inch strip. I'm using my next page, that craft page you see there, as a guide. I'm lining that up, and I will just push, turn the page over and glue it down. So again, I'm using glossy accents because it's gluing onto the transparency. And again, I'm just lining it up with that page, and then once I flip my page over, it lines up perfectly. So I let it dry for a few minutes off camera, And now I'm going to adhere the back side of the film strip just to finish that back page off. And it's being actually glued onto the paper itself, so that's why I'm using my Scotch Quick Dry and just adding it to the edges and the middle parts. And it matched up perfect. There's a hard piece of cardboard, so I'm putting it under there. That way I can get enough pressure on it to really press it down, make sure it's adhered well. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. And now I'm going to put the rest of my page together. I have some banners and flowers cut from the cameo. So I'm just kind of deciding where everything's going to go. That's a die cut from Dear Lizzie and some doodle flowers. Here I'm adding a very small scallop to the very bottom of my photo mat. And now I'm using my ATG to add some tape to it. And once I place it down, I'm not pressing it down too hard. I'm just barely putting it where I want, and that way I can still tuck things underneath it. Again, using Scotch Quick Dry just to adhere it down. I love that glue because it does dry quick and it dries completely clear. So I end up not being real happy with where those die cuts are at the bottom. I like the one on the right. Well, I like both of them, but I just didn't like them together. So I end up adding another die cut on top, and I ended up being happy with it once I did that. This banner here, I'm just adding the glue to the left-hand side. That way it didn't seep over to the transparency on the right. And I'll do the same with that die cut there. I also felt like adding that flower down there brought some of the same color down so it balanced the page out a little bit more and it wasn't so top heavy. So now I'm just going around making sure that everything's glued down. And I will add my journaling to the side. I pulled out some enamel dots and I end up using some enamel dots by My Mind's Eye. I added, I believe, 3 at the top and 3 at the bottom. It just depends on whether I use the ones I bought or the homemade ones. I like to use both actually, so it just kind of goes with what color I'm looking for. And here I had a bow already cut out that matched the paper perfectly, so I wanted to add that to the film strip. And now I'll grab a white enamel dot, a handmade enamel dot, add a little bit of hot glue and glue that on there. And now I also pre-cut out a banner that will match to cover that side of the banner. I don't think it looks bad, and I might end up pulling it off, but I wanted to add it to that page so when I end up doing a page, I have that option to have another banner there and I can stamp something on it if I'd like. So I left it open there. So that is it. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below and find me on Facebook and Instagram at Corene's Creations. There are some still photos coming up. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.